Hello friends in archery, craftsmen, interested passers-by. Today I had the rings cast, finally. I waited a while. That was done, by the way, by Bronze Art, and after I'm done explaining and introducing this, I'll transfer into that video where you can see the pouring operation and some of the magnificent art that they have there at their forge. I will first show you this colossal behemoth here. And this is unfinished. This kind of soiled, painted look, I believe, is sandblasted. They do that, I think, generally with pieces before they're finished. Now you see some polishing here, but what happens is that when these are poured, they're poured into a mold, and damned autofocus. They're kind of on a flower. In this case, it was 4 rings. They still retain 2 of those rings that they're going to apply their special sauce to. Something perhaps to oxidize the ring and stop it from turning the thumb green and stabilize the look of it. But I took 2 of them to finish myself. This is unfinished. This ring is a bit of a monster, and they shrunk 3%. So this one is a bit tight. It's difficult to get, and I'm not going to force it on. I shot with it earlier. It shoots well. It's big, it's bulky, it's really secure. It's a nice ring. I don't know if I'll pursue this one or not. It's a good shallow hook ring. I'll probably shorten this a little bit, because when it's all the way back on the thumb, if you try to do a regular hook, you feel it poking in a bit. But that's that. This took me a little over an hour to finish myself. And, that's totally separate from the original work and making the wax, the original wax ring, and then all the work that they've done there. I received this and it looked pretty much the same as that. This is much more refined. It's smaller. It does not need any adjustment. I'll often retune my rings after using them over time, and I'll have kind of several versions in one ring. But if you look at the profile, that's kind of my shape. That's the ring I want to make. The polish is okay. I didn't take too much time. You might see a little tiny divot in there somewhere, but it's nice and smooth. And it is a good ring. It works really well. A guy at the archery club was curious, and he asked me if he could take a couple of shots. He's never used a thumb ring before, and he actually hit the target. And someone using a thumb ring for the very first time, even hitting the target, I think, is a good sign. Now, a bit about the design of these. You'll see rings with the opening here, and I'm not claiming to be special or anything retarded, but I do bring this opening back a bit further that way. I push it to the limit, so the string will make a little bit of contact with the thumb. However, it's negligible. It doesn't interfere. But the main reason I bring it back so far, my original rings, the ridge came all the way across. There was no opening. That was no good. The reason I don't care for that is that the farther the string is this way, the more it optimizes the leverage. So the string, a Turkish ring is probably the best ring, but they're not necessarily the most comfortable and maybe not the most stable. This gets the string as far back as it ever needs to go. It doesn't need to be sawing into my thumb bone to be of any use. And it gives very good leverage. That's why I do that. And that's the way I think I'll make all of my rings. I will probably work on one Turkish ring, but this guy here was intended to replicate this. This is my favorite aluminum thumb ring, and that's not a tin can. This is T60 aluminum. It's maybe 1/10 the weight of that ring, and that's astonishing how much of a weight difference there is. Very light ring. You could pull back a 100-pound bow with this with no problems. And if you look at both of them, this one is a little, the bronze one is slightly smaller. Just a bit smaller, it's slightly more refined. If I can get this autofocus to work. This aluminum ring was crafted from a solid billet, just a square billet. I drilled it, I cut it in the bandsaw, and yes, you can cut aluminum pretty effectively, especially with a lubricant, with a bandsaw. More teeth on the blade is helpful. And then I just grind the hell out of it. Once I get kind of a basic shape, I grind and grind and grind, and then I finish it with sandpaper. That's a lot of effort. It's a lot of effort. And it's not as forgiving. If you make a mistake with that, the whole ring can be gone very quickly, and I've learned that the hard way. This and this, these two bronze rings, were born of a block of machinable wax. Not only is it easier to work with, it's faster, it's a bit more forgiving, and you don't have to apply as much pressure. When you dig in with a burr into aluminum or any metal, it can catch and wander and score, and then you have to sand out the scoring. With wax, you can take your time, and it's faster, and it turns out pretty well. I mean, this is how it turns out, and then you have to refine it. It's time consuming. I don't think I could ever make a profit with this, but one might ask, why should I be interested in your thumb rings? I don't know. I've never owned a thumb ring made by someone else, and to some that would already preclude me from having any credibility in my rings. However, I've made a lot of rings. I've made them out of mostly wood, where I failed many times and discarded the rings and learned. And I've had different designs and approaches. And yes, I kind of reinvented the wheel. But I'm very happy I did, because I have a great reverence for these things. I love Asiatic archery. I love archery in general, but specifically with a thumb ring, I don't think I will ever practice Mediterranean archery. I love longbows, I love horse bows, Asian bows, and as I said, I'm kind of working on a project with an ILF horsebow style riser. And I'm meticulous, and I really care about it, so those are my credentials. And in a future video, I'll be testing these on video. I tested them today, they work well, but I will have to get that on video at some future time. A quick update on the quivers. If anyone watched, I have to double check this treacherous camera because it autofocuses, it defocuses and all sorts of nonsense. It has a mind of its own. Not a very sound mind. As I said, I was going to, as opposed to the older designs, I was going to lengthen the arrow pouch. Now, you can see all the stitching here, way too much stitching. This was my first try at this style. So midway through, I thought, wow, this is awful. I think if you do evil things in life, you die and you go to a sewing class, and it lasts for eternity, and all you do is sew and exist in complete and total suffering. I'm not a real big fan of sewing, but I split this in half and sewed it together, and it works quite well. But I don't think I'll do that again, so the next one I did, you can see there are 1, 2, 3 points of sewing, and I was able to do that without splitting this in half, and I still had enough access to sew it, but not without wanting to beat myself. And then, just to play around, I punched some holes and used one of these leather strings, and that kind of adds a bit of extra security, and I attached an old aluminum thumb ring that I don't use too much. As far as attaching the shoulder strap, I improvised. I don't know what I did. It's probably not what someone else would do. But they work. This has at least 13 arrows in it. It's very stable. I I'm really fond of these quivers. I actually have no desire to go and buy one. If I was hunting, I might get something more quiet. If I was doing acrobatics and jumping out of helicopters with my bow, I might get something more secure. But for what I do, I'm really fond of these, and I really appreciate that there's been a lot of interest. That video has had a lot of views and feedback, and I really appreciate that people appreciate it. I think that's pretty cool. So thank you for that. Now, I'm going to, in a few minutes or a few moments, I'm going to lead into the video of the Bronze Art facility, the Bronze Art Forge, where they do a lot of magnificent things. Some very well-known artists have their art processed there. Excellent group of people. Really, really nice people. Founded by a guy who's not here anymore, but his family took it over, and they have really good quality help. Just a nice bunch of people who are patient and take things seriously, but are really nice. And that's Bronze Art in Sarasota, Florida. If you have a small project, you might consider sending it to them, or I don't know if they even do that, but it's a great place. Really, really, really cool place, and I'm very grateful for what they've done. That said, I'm pretty sure I mentioned I had to redo this video because of the autofocus. You just saw a big fuzzy blur. I contacted Armin Hermer. He won't talk to me. I don't know why, but who cares? There are other archers out there who take things seriously who might want to review one of these. If you're that person, contact me and I'll send one out if it's in your size. If it's not, I'll have to modify it. But unfortunately, I'll need to get my measurements, and that will be close to the minimum size. And you'll just have to have either the same size thumb or a bigger thumb. All right. So I'm here at the Bronze Art facility. I think that there is the original guy. And there's art all over the place. One of the guys here made that cheetah sign there by Kendall. Some very serious art around here. So I'm just going to kind of walk around and show some of the stuff these guys do. Of course, today they're going to be pouring the rings. I love this thing. This is, I don't know why, but I think that's just one of the coolest things I've seen. And a lot of this has been donated by the artists who have their work cast here. Some really, really interesting, magnificent stuff. Over here, some other. There's too much to focus on everyone individually. Serious work. A lot of stuff, almost everything far beyond my present ability. So I'll cut here and then I'll get the pouring on film.
Yeah.
Hang on, and pull it with a hook or you got it?
Ready? Yeah. Good. Guess we'll just hit the double first and then go from there. Double first? Yep. We're going to go there. Okay, good. Ready? Yes. And then over more pieces. We'll come in easy in case they're okay. Yeah. You want to come into my pot?
Actually, if we use the ingot, we can reclaim it quicker. So
Okay.
if we make it. Yeah, that way we can just take the ingot, throw it right back on there.
You good?
Yes.
Here we go.
Close. There we go. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Maybe number 4. Good. Yes. Yeah.
That way a little bit more than usual, because I always watch the one this way. That's perfect.
I was going to throw up the traction machine to level that out.
I keep forgetting it does have to tell us plate. Oh, sorry. We enjoy the wind, just because it helps keep us cool. Rain is no good.
Because I saw the fellow ask me to turn off the fan when you guys were doing the pouring.
I don't know why they do that. I like to leave it on, but I think maybe the noise, just so we can communicate better.
Okay.
But the wind, well, it doesn't affect the bronze pouring at all. Let it cool down a little more, we'll sandblast. And then these are little flashes, they come right off. You sand them right off of there. Those are just little micro cracks in the shell, but they just knock right off and you just polish it right up.
And I'll never hold you to this, but how many pounds of pressure do you think it would take to break or bend one of these rings? Just an estimate. A lot?
You're going to have a real hard time bending it. You're not going to break it, ever.
So this is going to be a really tough ring.
Yeah, you can't break it. If anything, it'll bend a little bit, but it's
So there's not going to be any snapping.
no snapping. No. You could tie a chain to that and hang tons of weight off. Bronze is really strong. It's not going to break, like it doesn't snap. You know, like a weld breaking. If anything, it'll distort a little.
Certain hard aluminums will
It'll
crack.
yeah, it's not gonna crack, not gonna crack. I mean, at some point it would give, I don't know, it would be an
But that's
immense
a
amount of weight
lot
though.
of
Yeah.